Mic check, mark 2 1 2. So yeah, they're essentially always recording themselves, right? You're always recording yourself. You have a tape recorder that you turn on and off to capture an idea, and then you have the time to like process your thought, because you can only process so much in like real life. Like you have like other shit to be aware of, right? So it's like a snap. Just you take a picture. And you make it more detail, and then you describe whatever that detail is. And then when you're able to describe whatever that detail is, then you create another idea on top of that idea, so you can add whatever you want. And that's why there's like little unique things to everything. That's why everything is, in a sense, microscopic. Very small, but it's also very big. You have things pulling all directions, trying to grow a certain way, because that's the way they believe is the way to live. And it's like, that's what they call extremists. That's what we have. You have the people in the middle, which is trying to grow equally on all directions, because we have to figure out that if you stretch yourself too far, then you end up collapsing. And that's what black holes and all these other things are. So I guess black holes, in a sense, are the biggest object or the smallest. So it gets tricky. I can't get that far. I can't process that data yet. It's as far as I go, but I know that it's there. Like there's a medium that always happens, and then it decides whatever is the outcome of it. It's gonna be black or it's gonna be white. Why y'all play these games like this? It's like you guys go really focused. No, because it's like it must be really stressful, because you're essentially your lifespan. You gotta process that all the way to the top, and then come back down, and then whatever. That's when you meet whatever it is, and you collide. Whoever can go up and down the fastest is the one that wins. It chooses which way to go. You go left, you go right. And then essentially, I got so bored, and I was like, okay, we can't keep going this way. Let's create another direction. Then I created another direction, another direction, another direction. And then I got all over the fucking place, and that's where you created fucking colors. Like colors. Colors was the first thing they created. And that's the first thing that came to life, because it's like colors. Okay, so if I have colors, I have light. So eventually, right, instead of blending all the colors, and you create the color white, then you create the color black, because you kept blending more and more and more colors that couldn't be blended, because it became darker and darker, or brighter, darker, brighter, whatever. Then it goes to singing. And then you created numbers, and then numbers is basically working the same fucking scale. There's negatives, there's positives. And then you start creating like graphs instead of going sideways, and then this, and then that. It all started all the way down. And then we have buildings, we have colors, we have structures that we can touch, because before you can only process it. Or maybe that's the way to go up. I don't know. Maybe we're starting from the bottom. You guys going to the top, but you also going to the bottom. Drop a both directions. Go that way, this, that, just look it. Then you created circles. Then you created circles. When you created circles, what you end up finding with circles is that circles kind of become a little tricky. Circles never have a true center point, right? Because the moment you decide to move, let's say you move to the center, to the left, right? You kind of just hit a gap. You can't really move left, because you can't go across the plane. You can never cover the whole entire circle, right? So you have to have like the specific length, and that's the game of Snake, in order to win, right? But eventually what you start finding is that you're going to reach an end where you're going to control the whole entire board, right? Or the circle, right? And it's going to become one solid piece. And what ends up happening is shit shifts, right? And then you collapse internally, right? Because you were so dark, and then light. Essentially, what you're doing with that and that perspective is you're and it's making things so small that they have nothing but to explode to their max capability. Because once you bring things to the small capability that they could go, that's why they explode. And that's why we have all these things happening now. People are just exploding. Things are exploding. Because people are getting their max, and their max is being reached much faster, and in a way with basically you're fucking killing yourself, right? But maybe those other guys have been fighting, they've been playing the light game so long that they've been pushing down now. They fed up with the light, so they only want darkness, because that's all they can. The gravitational pull, I guess, or electromagnetic field, and all these different things are just grabbing it, right, and just holding themselves, and they hold themselves tighter and tighter and tighter and tighter and tighter, and they start getting more grip and more grip and more grip. And eventually, what you end up finding is that pill to pull so hard, the person on the other side, whatever's on the other side, can't hold on anymore, right? And the moment you can't hold on anymore, things snap. And we see that through life, the whole entire thing. It's like the same consequences happen. Things snap. And then new things arrive and some things die. And in a nutshell, that's life. That's life. So that's a vicious circle, I guess. So it's a circle. It's always been a circle. Which is never aware. Like imagine not being able to process sounds. That sucks. But I guess it's probably good. I say that because it's what I prefer. There's people who prefer their vision. Imagine not being able to see the things you love. That sucks. There has to be a way to change that. There has to be, man. I gotta find that answer. Because that's why me and her have been together for so long. Somebody's always been about balancing each other out. That's why this circle works. That's the relationship between the moon and the sunlight. It's checks and balance. That's what it is. But as you see, though, it's also like it's also off balance. The light, most places, is winning, and then the moon is winning in some places, and then like there's very close ties, and that's why you have really unbalanced ecosystems because they're also the creators of the ecosystem. And the ecosystem is like from the smallest to the bigger. Bigger ones that started all, and then eventually it just becomes more predictable, and then you eventually start, you become so predictable, and then blah 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 blah, more things more, and then that's where the dramatic change happens, right? And that's where like things basically are wiped out, and everybody's born again with that last idea and all the knowledge prior to that. And now you have to figure that out again. And that's why there's just things, humanity and basically the whole ecosystem. We always think it's just humanity because it's our story, right? Also, we learn to write things now. That's our craft. Our craft is to write things now. Because if you can write things down, we know it's symbols. We understand the symbols are very important, right? So the only way for you to read, we figure out like the only two ways really is to communicate back with us, right, or forward with us through numbers or letters, aka symbols, right? So essentially, everything comes down from symbols. So symbol was essentially a last great creation. That's pretty fucking cool, though. Look, because we understand symbols, right? So, like us as humans, that's the last thing we created, right? The rest is colors, right? The colors come from down the plants. The plants are the ones that they are the creators of colors. And then water is like jello. So imagine like the plasma of the universe. That's what basically water is. It's plasma. That's why if you notice, I gotta say if you notice, because then again it's between you and I, so it's like, so if you notice, technically I'm saying it correctly. Right? So sometimes I gotta figure that language out. I gotta learn how to recreate that method, right? Without no, but then I will lose my craft, then I become deaf. I'm just like, no, I don't want to fucking do that. That's stupid. I'm gonna go back in reverse. Good catch. So, anyways, so what we understand is it's interesting when you like sit down and be like, how can people talk all the time? People who just have something always like playing in a sense. Like who do they like? You're a constant channel talking, right? And then this is what we created the news to be, right? They're constantly stimulating you in a weird way and telling you what's happening. Like, who came up with this idea? Like I want you to know that you know that I know what you're doing. Story of Santa Claus. That people allow themselves to be spied by others. They gotta be okay with it. Like I'm allowed to watch you live your life. I'm gonna tell you exactly everything you're doing. I'm gonna know because I watched it after you did it. That's cold. That's funny. It's really interesting. I really like this. Maybe it's because I'm connected more with. It's cool though. Whoever created this, thank you. You guys are awesome. Appreciate that, man. Like it's like fellow humans, but like, hey, I don't want my fellow humans to get hurt. Let's write it in the map, bro. Let's create a data so they can keep up with this. Then people can be aware of it, and then we share it with them in a good way, right? And then just let it be, man. Like just do cool things like this. And they imagine like they use the internet. Like all these things are Internet of Things. Like tracking device all comes down from the internet. And that's pretty cool, man. But you come with an idea, and then your idea, and you other people hear your idea, and then your idea can stack up to their idea. So yeah, man, yeah, I could use that idea. That's pretty cool. 'Cause I had like a million things that I thought of doing this, but I could have never funded myself. So I went and did it. That's freaking cool, man. That's cool. Thanks. The world needs more people like you. Bum, 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 bum. I really started to enjoy my job. Yeah, not started because I really like my job. Like, I really enjoy what I do. I feel like, in a sense, like I'm doing something good for the greater of humanity. Even if it's not like the perfect, circumstance of what's out there, right? But like at least I'm putting a part where like I can actually see what's happening and I can warn others, like, hey, please don't do this. This is harming us. But it's also, I'm losing a relationship at home. But it's part of the game, I guess. It's the game I chose to play. what we've been taught essentially is that travel, see as far as you can see, but always return home and then go back. That's the trick, right? Because in a sense, what you end up doing is that you go a certain way, and then you put a set point, right? And then you stop, and you take like every little thing, every memory that you can take from that little moment, and you download it, and you put it in a specific place. When you put it in that specific place, it creates a specific memory, a specific experience, and a specific time of knowledge. That knowledge is what you essentially understand as time. That's how you keep track of things. That's why you have labels for everything. You have a sign for everything. You have a symbol for everything. But again, symbols are the origins of all it is. Because it all started again from black against white. Why do you think eclipses are so special? Because it's a point where like it's literally a 50-50 game. Every single time it's a 50-50 game. Like what happens essentially is that they these guys, their game is just different. I swear, like it's what the fuck, dude. Like how long have you been around? Like your game is just like wow. Like that's a lot of things you gotta process. Again, you remember these things, the original thing decided to create things out of those things, and those things they get deleted, right? And then because you lose battles, right? And you lose memories on that battle, like it's a gap, right? And essentially that gap it becomes the enemy's territory, and they still in your lineage in a weird way, right? So that's why you always have the black and white, the up and the down, the blah blah blah, and like the 0 and the 1. It's always the same thing, right? And black and the white. And essentially everything comes from black and white, right? That's what it is. That's what numbers are. A white dot and a black dot. You have two, right? And when they collapse, whoever wins becomes a 1, whoever loses becomes a 0. And then, and there goes 1 zeros, 1 zeros, 1 zeros, 1 zeros. They keep collapsing, right? Because there's only one outcome, right? And then one of them essentially gets tired of doing the same move. They're like, yo, dude, we've been doing this for a very long time. And let's try it different ways, right? And one of them is just like, oh, I'm gonna keep doing it the same way, fuck you, right? And then the other one turns it just like a 0, 0, 0, 0, 0, 0, 0, 0, 0, 0, 0, 0, 0, 0. 0, 0, 0. Imagine the zeros, the more zero that you can fucking possibly see, right? That's the biggest number you can see as 0, right? And then add a 1 of them. And then change the code. And then you reset yourself back to 0. And then you keep doing that same move because they don't know how to defend themselves because they keep making the same mistakes in the same direction. But you keep doing the same move and you keep winning. You keep winning. You keep winning. You keep winning. Keep winning, keep winning, and then you end up finding that you've been playing the same game, and you're tired of doing this. And then you know what you did? You turn to the right. But 0, 0, 0, 0, 0, 0, 0, 0, 0, 0, 0, the biggest 0 you can find? No, I'm sorry, 1 that you can find. And then you added a 0. And then the code restarted, right? Now you have black moving one specific way, by a very, very, very micro movement, smallest thing that you could possibly see. But also, I also do it in the biggest thing that you can see, or feel, or sense, or whatever it is. How far you think you can expand it yourself. That's how far like the advanced they are. Pretty funny. Essentially, it is pretty funny because it's like, wow, I thought that I was special. I thought it was pretty cool, man. Like, bro, damn, man. I reached out these many people, like I've touched them in a sense. not physically, but way to the mind, whatever it is. It's like people hyper focus to just one thing and they only do it one way, and then they all find that they go too far, and then they become more lost because that's what ends up finding. Like you become so ahead of yourself, or like because you go one way so hard that you end up finding that like you have never sat down and processed all of this shit. Like you just intake the information for a very long time, and you took zero time to process. So essentially, what you have is a lot of crap in your fucking head, because essentially you're just overbuilding information, right? This is you're overbuilding information, right? You end up finding that you have zero conclusions to what's actually happening. Like there's people really don't know what's around them. Damn, bro, that's cool.